Tech Conference with the theme of transforming Indian logistics via technology. Without any further ado, let's move on to the next panel discussion with the topic of interconnecting stakeholders for a connected supply chain and logistics ecosystem. Let me first invite our moderator, Mr. Vimal Nayak. He's the Director Product from Pando Corporation. And now let me introduce you to our speakers for the panel discussion. First, Mr. Anna, he's the Director and co-founder from ShipRocket. Mr. Amit Ranjan, he's the Director Engineering from Coin Earth. Mr. Girija Shankar, Chief Sales and Solutions Officer from TVS Supply Chain Solutions. Dr. Kaushik Ghatak, Founder and Director from Value Quest. And Mr. Manoj Pathari, Vice President and Supply Chain, Zydus Wellness. Over to you, Mr. Nair.
Thank you, Shivani. It's a pleasure to moderate this session. I would also take this opportunity to welcome all the members as part of this panel discussion. Thank you. As Shivani mentioned, the topic for the day is a very, very interesting topic. Interconnecting stakeholders for a connected supply chain and logistics ecosystem. There is a market that is segmented. Technology has always had a great role to play. Be it segmented suppliers or manufacturers in the country, there are mammoth e-commerce players who have done a great job of aggregating this and providing an organic service. Be it segmented restaurant chains across the country or in any country for that matter, huge food delivery platforms have done a great deal in tech enablement and creating a huge market out of itself. But one thing is clear, whenever the market is fragmented, when there is a large fragmentation in any industry, tech has always been relevant, digital enablement has always been important. So in this context, when we actually talk about logistics as an industry, we are not really talking about one, we are not talking about two, but a plethora of stakeholders who actually are part of this particular industry. If we take any one shipment that is potentially going from a supplier all the way till destination, it interacts with so many stakeholders along the way, be it the supplier, be it the manufacturer, be it the shipper, be it the consignee, the transporter, the first mile, last mile logistics providers, CHS, customer agent, freight forwarders, I can go on and on. And most importantly, all of these segments are largely fragmented. So it would be very, very interesting to see when so many stakeholders are available in an industry with a fragmented presence. What really can technology do? And what is actually technology doing at the moment? And where can we see ourselves in the next 5 to 10 years with the huge buzz that technology can bring in this industry? And from this aspect, I am very keen to listen to the views of the members here, because I see a wide array from this panel where Manoj represents the demand side from a logistics front. We have Vishesh who represents the supply and the service side. We have Kaushik representing the advisory bit from a logistics standpoint. And we have Amit and Girija who can talk about the solutions from a technology standpoint, all with respect to logistics and supply chain. So it's a great pleasure to start this session. Thanks. Before we get into the topic, I think it would be great to understand, given the COVID and the post-COVID situation, hopefully the post-COVID situation that we are in, how are shippers today, our firms today, from a global perspective, trying to cater to the demand when so many stakeholders are actually involved? How are they actually catering to today's demand and, more importantly, tomorrow's demand? So from that aspect, Manoj, I would like to get your perspective on, has demand really changed? What has been demand in a COVID or a post-COVID era typically, and how are the expectations changing? How is the research changing? Over to you, Manoj.
Thanks, Vimal. I think for our company, 50% of sales comes, so it's a seasonal sales, right? So from the summer. And we Penta for the summer. So basically Glucon-D and the Nycil are two biggest products in our portfolio. And in both the season, unfortunately, COVID came in April and May. So we have experienced the most VUCA world than anyone else, right? But said so, we also had other products where supply chain is global. So my incoming raw materials were coming from Malaysia, China, etc. So there is a incoming supply chain variance. There is a manufacturing variance in terms of stop and start. There is then CFAs working logistics, etc. But one thing I can tell you is we were much more prepared in this wave compared to the last wave. right? And business-wise, I think we have done well despite season being washed out completely. We still grew, and one of the reason is I mean a word known as demand, right? So basically, how do you so lot of people they get irritated or sometimes they are angry also when I say supply chain is a cost center. So finally, whatever you are doing, it's adding to cost and wherever we can optimize. And for a company like us, from a user perspective, I think we are in a food where expiry for some of the item is 4 months from manufacturing to maybe 6 months, 9 months, 15 months, 18 months. And if we have this kind of variability, then it's really difficult to run the supply chain. So if you have more and so your demand sensing is correct, and if so, as they say, data is new inventory. So if your data flows across all the facets of supply chain, you are able to take a correct decision. So finally, when we are seeing all the digital journey, etc., what it solves a problem, right? Or what it solves. So as an organization, it's very important whenever we see from the perspective that what is the problem it is solving, what we are trying to solve. And
Right.
then we have entire, design of the journey and then the execution.
Right.
But fortunately, I think I'll say this year, logistics, CFA operations, they were much more smooth. I think we learned from last COVID where we stopped everything and simply last time there were no cases but more fears. This year there were more cases and less fear. So that has helped us. Actually, supply chain rain is normal. But if we remove the outlier of the 2 years of COVID, we don't know whether third wave will come or no. But I think we are much more prepared and entire. So we have done a lot of uh, work in a digital space because our customers, the channels are changing. The bigger issue is from GT, it moved to MT, and from MT also now it is moving to e-com. And we are all happy when Amazon delivers in 24 hours, but as a supply chain guy, we cry because then they will push their supply chain. And not only Amazon, I think all the e-com, they will push you, right? And that is changing in a big way. And say if I have 300 SKUs and 25 CFAs, then you have a 7,500 data points of primary. And if you
Right.
multiply by 200,000 outlets and maybe 2,000 distributors, so it's a complex world, and only digital solution can resolve it. I mean,
Got it, Manoj. Quite interesting points. You mentioned that the demand variability went up significantly.
yeah,
And you mentioned that your channels changed from a GT to an MT or a GT to an e-com, general
yeah,
trade to an e-commerce, which means customer expectation changes. You mentioned 24 hours, right? When all of this is there, right? Coming from a trucking business, I saw data points which typically said uh, trucks, let's say, coming out of south in the last 3 months reduced by 22%.
yeah,
Now, for this fluctuating demand, which requires instantaneous order fulfillment, it is important to understand supply. Do we have enough supply? Of course, supply can come from product supply, which means preparedness from a raw material, but from a logistics standpoint, supply with respect to trucks, transporters, Vishesh, your perspective in this COVID situation, has supply been able to cater to demand, or supply independently has seen a variability in itself?
Yeah, thank you. So I think overall there was a increase in demand that no one expected, no one planned for, no one predicted. So while that was one challenge in itself, there was a significant decrease in manpower in basic resources availability. Right, the supply chain today wasn't even prepared to handle the flux of Diwali sales, for example. So even
Right.
then, the supply chains used to go a little bit haywire. Now, in the same scenario, when COVID happened, we have seen demand increasing by 5, 7x
Right.
versus the earlier. We have seen a jump in new first-time online sellers by over 5 to 7x. The supply chain wasn't prepared. So yes, it took time to cope up and get our supply chains and scale up to those levels. But once we scaled after the first wave, once people saw and they saw this was not temporary, this is going to stay. The demand is going to stay. The new channels or the increase in orders is going to stay. I think people started hiring, people started scaling, And once we were prepared, by the time the second wave hit us, I think the supply chain was very, very well prepared for it. And versus our first wave, where we saw lost shipments, damaged shipments, delays in shipments. In the second wave, that reduced significantly, and we were completely able to cope up with the whole thing.
And most of your thoughts are coming from an e-commerce point of view, am I
Yeah.
right, Ushish?
Yeah,
And
so
you're
from Shipmocket's
validating,
point of view, yeah.
right. You're validating what Manoj is saying, that the e-commerce burst has gone 5x, 7x, while the general
Absolutely.
trade, right, while all the other trades which we were traditionally prepared for were not really going in that. So when the times are changing, right, when the expectation is going up, supply is becoming variable, what it is necessary to see what is the actual need of the hour. What should each firm, right? What Manoj mentioned about Zydus, it is important to know what each firm should be geared upon and what they should be prepared with from either, I don't know, it can be from a digitization standpoint, or it can be since age-old topic to say that I have to bring suppliers on board, I have to bring customers on board, all of us should be on the same platform so that the information and the data flow is seamless. So Kaushik would want to understand from you, what is your thoughts about this? How should shippers be prepared? And what is the need?
Thanks, Vimal, and good afternoon, everyone. Really good to be here. I think it's a very, very interesting topic that we're discussing here. We talked about demand side variability, we talked about supply side variability. Now, all of these variabilities were there earlier also, pre-COVID, right? It's just that COVID got us to a scale of variability that we were completely unprepared for. And that's why, the first shock for, in India, as well as I work with a few global customers, it was across the board. The first shock was really bad. And then, as we started understanding the implications more and more, we started putting in things together, right? So the way I view it, and the way I see some of my customers, working towards that is, there are some fundamental thought processes going around. Like first of all, one thing obviously is to address the need of the hour in terms of preparedness for the continuing disruption that we are having in terms of COVID. And that's more of a reactive mode and a repair mode. But then there is a transformational mode, because many leading companies are seeing this, that, there are, in many ways, our mindsets have changed, probably permanently, and our buying patterns, our consuming preferences have changed. And therefore, we can't be thinking of our business models and supply chain models the way we used to think earlier. And so when we talk about the need of the hour, what I believe and what I see some of the companies doing is kind of rethinking their business model. And one of the classic examples you have heard of, P&G going direct to consumer, right? Or Kellogg's going direct to consumer. Because they are, you talked about fragmentation, Vimal. People are realizing that the more fragments we have, the more handover points we have, the more risk we run in terms of points of failure. And therefore, how can we get visibility of my end customer, what they are doing, and can I have the control in terms of understanding the demand from their side? So reducing the variability of demand that classically happens if there are multiple partners involved, and also the same for suppliers, right? So there is a fundamental shift in terms of business models and supply chain architecture. And there is one thing that is happening is, supply chain, and I grew up in the supply chain field for the last 30 years. Supply chain, and Manoj, you mentioned this, supply chain has traditionally been treated as a cost center, and things like lean and et cetera, has so much influenced our thought that we think that efficient supply chain is the way to go. But this disruption showed us that efficient supply chain is not always the way to go, because if I don't have alternate suppliers and dual sources, then I have a problem in terms of getting the supply at the right time, right? So more than just making lean, now we are thinking of flexibility, agility, and looking at my supply chain structure aligned with the demand variabilities, because we have a lot of products, but not all products face the same level of demand variability and supply variability. And for that, we can have an efficient supply chain. But for those, new products, new markets, where the variability is high, you need to have a different model. And that's where we need to build in buffers and make things more responsive. And so that's a fundamental shift in thinking that I think is going on. And then comes the topic of digitization, right? So, Manoj, again, to your point, I really liked the way you said that technology has to solve a business problem. And again and again, I see that companies who are, trying to, answer the reason why they should be doing anything at all, and therefore, where does technology come in that, solving of that why in that business case, they are doing better than those who are just trying out different technologies randomly without a plan.
Right.
And that's where, I think, this whole key thought process of why I need to do this, how I should achieve it, and then asking the questions on what specific technologies do I need, and I'm sure we'll get into all of that, later on, is fundamental to really making our supply chains more flexible, more agile, more sustainable, I would say.
Right. Kaushik, so you mentioned that you took the example of P&G, you talked about D2C, right? Directly to consumer model. What is a question in my mind is, okay, a firm should be adaptable to its responses, but a firm cannot automatically make all the, let's say, order fulfillment or demand fulfillment in any manner. They need the help of multiple people who are sitting around them, right? Who are typical service providers. So from that angle, and when I'm talking of a, let's say, coming from a transport space, right, or a warehousing space, a warehouse service provider, or a transporter for that matter, how disconnected can they be? And the way they are traditionally functioning today, right? Can that continue? And what changes is it seen? For example, I have seen when people, let's say in transportation, there is someone called a transport representative who has to go to every office and sign whenever a truck is actually leaving a facility. We are now seeing a situation where there are no guys who can go and sign. And this very minute, insignificant point of a person going and doing a physical signature is now not possible in the COVID area. So maybe Girija can address that from a supply chain solution standpoint, right? So how should, do you see a shift from a transporter or from any other stakeholder point of view? Do you see a shift in the way they are behaving? Are they also trying to integrate with the shipper so that they can provide a holistic service experience? Is there a change in the market towards digitization, which Kaushik mentioned is quite important?
Thanks, Vimal, and thank you, MI, for having me here. I think there are two track issues here. One is there's an immediacy of needs that are manifested, as you said. You can't travel, therefore you need to find workarounds, or a certain channel percentage, let's say e-com channel as a percentage has gone up significantly, and therefore you have to change a certain way of working. And that requires probably short-term immediate solutions. We've seen, for example, driver availability becoming an issue intermittently across the, and then earlier somebody mentioned about the number of trips from south to north coming down, which made it very difficult for north to south movements, and the rentals have, the vehicle rates have gone up significantly. So multiple disruptive issues have happened. The supply chain got broken, and the nature of business took a certain shift. So if you are buying 90% through offline channel, suddenly you couldn't buy, and therefore you have to go to the online channel to the extent possible. And to the extent online channels, the supply sides were not really, set to do that kind of volume or that kind of merchandise. I'll talk a little bit more about, however, the structural part of it, because I think a lot has been said about the immediacy of the need and how do we solve it. If you can't go and sign a particular POD document or a transport book, I mean, you can have a short-term solution. But I think the three broad directional long-term secular shifts that I see that are happening and that will happen. Some of them are probably accelerated because of COVID-related impacts. Some will probably get little impacted. Those are secular and will come back. One is that the complexity of supply chain will continue to grow. So if you had 10 SKU 5 years before, today you have 50 SKUs. 5 years before you had 2 trade channels, today you have 5 trade channels. You had your consumption patterns which were predictable. You could do a moving averages. Today you can't do a moving averages, right? So your supply chain inherently is becoming complex. And what we see when we talk to OEMs and organizations who are and the principals, basically the end users, the fixation tends to be on why the rate of a truck from Bangalore to Delhi has gone up, without looking at the need whether I actually have to send a truck from Bangalore to Delhi. Could I have changed my network? Could I have done something different, created a resiliency in my supply chain environment, and therefore minimize the impact that I'm seeing today by building up? So that's one. So one is there's a directional shift in the complexity. That shift is getting manifested more and more. And how do organizations need to look at it? And our advice to companies is to look at their network first, look at their supply chain design first, and then talk about truck prices, because truck prices is easy to discover. You make 5 phone calls, you may not be able to get to the right level, but you'll discover the price. But are you doing the right network to begin with, right? So that's one. Secondly, what COVID has taught us is the need for resiliency, because there's always that balance between how optimal you are and how able you are to manage idiosyncrasies that come in a day-to-day life and reach out to the end customer without with a level of predictability. And those who have been able to create that predictability of experience with the end customer while managing the vagaries that have been put out forth, that has been those organizations have benefited. So taking a resilience view and not just an optimization view to the whole situation. And third, all of the digital capabilities that are being built at set of point solutions, we are seeing now then these coming together as integrated digital first way of working, which earlier was more of quote unquote an IT enablement, right? So IT enablement is passé, it's kind of gone, right? Everybody can do a POD, and most of those PODs are junk. You can't really use those PODs, right? You need a POD that goes straight into your billing system. Your billing system is able to take that POD and get the bill raised to the client, and any variation in the let's say loading charges or something else is part of it. Otherwise, you do your main billing, your ancillary billing is manual, and then you are for 2 months doing reconciliations. So I think I see 3 key takeaways in line with the directional shifts I talked about. One is the need for looking at what your business is, and is my supply chain linked to it, it's sitting with it, is in tune with it, is extremely important. That exercise you could do once in 10 years earlier. Today you have to do it once in 2 years maybe, right? Secondly, create resiliency in the network, create resiliency in the way of working, create resiliency in the partner network, right? If you are dependent on one particular organization, no matter how capable they are, you suddenly may find yourself stuck in a situation. And third, relook at the way your processes and systems are, and see whether bottom up there is a need for you to redesign, rethink, reimagine your digital footprint. Because it's very, very nice to come and say, look, I've got digitization, I've done it. But in reality, most of the places where we go to, it is very difficult to actually see the impact on the ground. And therefore, we recommend organization to relook at it and build it bottom up where need is, and drive that forward. So yeah.
That's very interesting, Girija. Thanks. So I am taking cues from the 2 points that you mentioned. One, a resilient supply chain, right? And don't build that resiliency. You mentioned build it in yourself and your partner networks, right? Just building in your own sense is not really going to give you an effort if the chain is broken, and if there are other entities who are not in tune with whatever you're doing, right? And hence you mentioned that having a digitization, right? Just to say that I have digitized my warehousing, I have digitized my transportation flow from dispatch until POD receipt, but integrate it with saying that is the transporter able to respond to it? Is your service provider able to respond to it? Are you integrated with the goods receipt at the destination so that everything forms a flow, right? And thereby bringing all of these, what I'm able to gather from what you said is bringing all of these players together and having all of their information flow seamlessly, so that everyone is not only aware of the status, but it is not only about visibility anymore, right? It's not only about being aware of the status, but the next system being part of what I can call as a touchless network, right? Something which can automatically happen which can automatically tune itself to the variances that you see. So this is where when I read Amit's profile, I found it very interesting on the type of blockchain work that is being done on an integrated SC point of view. So Amit would like your point of view on where we are with respect to technology and what is the potential way where this can be enhanced to address the points which Girija just mentioned so as to build a resilient supply chain.
Yeah, thank you, Vimal. I'll take it into two steps. First step, I'll talk about an existing solution, which is already in the early phases of deployment with a big mineral manufacturer in India. And they have this multiple transporters. They have hundreds of transporters, dozens of suppliers who supply them coal and minerals. And so our solution is basically built to cater to this client. And three points I would like to touch here, the kind of advantage which kind of Girija and Kaushik also touched upon. The transparency and the visibility aspect, right? Now, and second is the reconciliation. So let me go to transparency and visibility. So now this is like a multi-tier network where you have this metal manufacturer and you have suppliers and transporters. And so all these parties are on this platform.
Right.
And all the orders are created on the platform through the ERP. But the key part here, what blockchain helps is the smart contracts aspect. So one big problem here is, in the industry-wide, and maybe Girija and Kaushik and others will agree with me. So though if you have this much of large number of transporters and suppliers, and typically you have different kind of contracts. So reconciliation is a huge problem, whether some penalty needs to be raised or some bonus need to be paid, and then there is the disputes. So what blockchain helps you is with the smart contract aspect is it makes everything transparent. And all your penalty, bonuses, or whatever your contractual terms are, they get triggered automatically. So there's no manual intervention involved. So in this particular solution, now we have got, as I was saying, real-time visibility. And shipment is another big problem, where, as you were mentioning, truck has come and it has to be delivered, and then the invoice is raised. So all that process becomes transparent, right? And the second part is the reconciliation part, which I touched upon with credit and debit note aspect. And the third is the data trust part. Now, you can argue that I can do both these things, transparency, visibility, and reconciliation using traditional ERP, right? But then data trust is not there because the traditional ERP data is owned by a organization. Here, everybody can have a copy of the data, right? And data gets written only after everybody has signed on it. So there's only one version of the truth. So that's where the blockchain aspect really helps. And now coming to the second part of the question that you asked, that where we see it is going. And due to constant disruptions, COVID being just one case, with global warming, you have this sudden rains. So suddenly you have to basically recalibrate your supply chain. So that's the direction even we believe the industry is going. So we have our solution kind of supports a marketplace where you can go and discover vendors. Now problem that Girija pointed out. Why should I get the material driven from Madras to Delhi if I can come from Haryana? If I want to discover it real time, then the marketplace kind of thing helps. It might not be very optimal, but yeah, very, very.
And where are we, Amit? Are we there with respect to adoption? How many years are we away?
Yes. No. So this solution that I was really talking about, so this is based on a Hyperledger. Since it's early phases of deployment, so I'm not mentioning the client.
No, absolutely. It's in general.
Right. So in general, yes. In general, there's a lot of interest. People are looking into it, and especially COVID gave a lot of impetus because the push for this, because of digitization. No, there was a lot of push on digitization. Now people who are not ready to carry papers, they wanted a digital copy of everything. Contactless kind of supply chain. Yeah.
So a data sharing mechanism which is transparent, so everyone has a copy, and the data without residing with a single person, but all the stakeholders is clearly a step towards what we are saying. Thanks, Amit. That was really useful. But I would also want to leave the floor open to everyone, Kaushik, Manoj, Vishesh, from your point of view, let's say with blockchain in one aspect, right? There are many other aspects that are picking up steam, right? AI-driven analytics, the intelligent network, IoT-based decisions.
Yeah.
What other factors do you see, and what other factors, as a service provider or from a supply network, Vishesh, or from a demand side, Manoj, where do you see, how do you see these technologies getting adopted, and what are you really looking forward to? And Kaushik, what do you think is going to be the future?
So
Go ahead, Manoj.
Manoj, yeah, Manoj, please, let's start with Manoj. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, thinking forward, one of the biggest challenge in all the organization is, so there are a lot many startups in the various space, right? There is a primary freight, right? I mean, optimizer, there are integrated planning control towers, there are secondary freight, okay, there are vendor management portals. So organizations, if I see the wish list from the customer side, it's an integrated approach that I have so many different technologies. So my for big companies, ERP remains a source of truth, and
True.
whatever I will do, peripheral should talk to my ERP, because
Right.
then ERP is the one which carries everything. And there are a lot of things, but integrating all these things and typically, mapping the current demand and the future demands or the future ways of working, how good that the technology is. So this is some wish list where whether integrated things are there. And if I see further silos, I think a lot of work done in terms of execution. We talked about the POD and the automatic invoice processing, etc. in primary, but secondary transportation and the secondary optimization still is not there. And the last thing is that retailer said, as a CPG company, I would like to see the stock lying at a retailer's end in a real time. What is the kind of expiry it has? So if I get it, nothing like it. And last wish is how consumer buys, and if I can convert that behavioral pattern into data and serve it. So I think these are some of the needs from the user industry,
Okay.
and how I can integrate all. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I
another
think the
challenge.
wish list is quite clear. I mean, you are talking of very, very specifically, right? You told digital freight systems. You're saying primary is there, secondary is not yet there. You are saying vendor portal, you're saying transporter portal, you're saying customer portal, so that everyone comes on to you as an aspect.
Yeah.
From a shipper point of view, you are very clear that you want the entire set of stakeholders on the same platform.
Yeah.
And as Amit mentioned, it is important for the stakeholders also to have that access of their entire platform. That's very clear. But when this wish list is there, Vishesh, do you think transporters or any other stakeholders who not necessarily are tech savvy because they are far and fragmented and loose can actually cater to this? Can they jump onto the platform which this is providing? And should these platforms be in-house? Do we already have these platforms on board that can be utilized by all of these stakeholders to create this united community, the way I would call it?
Sure. So I think transporters not being tech savvy, I think, is an old statement now. With the new age, I think everyone has adopted it. I think with startups, giving them enough technology support. Problem with technology adoption was the cost to implement. I believe with
Right.
now the SaaS models and open source models, I think the technology has become cheaper and adoption. With mobile adoption going up, it is much more easier to get any transporter or any supply chain system basic technological savvy. I think that's there. A lot of innovation has happened when it came to how e-commerce operators, design the supply chain from a headquartered central warehouse supplying to all over countries. Very soon they realized, given the lockdowns and unpredictability, you can't have your business shut down just because an area of a pin code is under lockdown. So
Right.
distributed for supply chain was the need of the hour, and that came out. So at Shiprockets, and we opened almost 15 warehouses in less than 5 months, and had
Right.
our merchants distribute their inventories, and the decision making on what inventory should be distributed in which pin code came from data science. Just
Got
looking at your 2-year historical data, we can predict these many SKUs or this many products of this SKU should be kept in Rajkot to be able to keep your supply chain active. So, using those kinds of data-backed decisions, you are now optimizing a supply chain for cost and time both. Because if the order is now shipped from the nearest warehouse, one, the time of shipping, and two, the cost of shipping because of distance is fairly optimized. And
Got it.
other angles about aggregation, when it came to aggregation, the supply chain was always available in all parts, right? From B2B to B2C, from trucking to air to surface, everything is available. Now, how do
Right.
you stitch all these parts together was
Right.
was the opportunity primarily.
Got it.
So, using the best possible courier partner, using the best possible line haul partner for your product. So if you break it down and then stitch the parts, that is how we were able to scale, because
So
there were line haul partners who were expertise in their own geographies. So you can
got
just
it.
use bulk shipment line hauls using those partners, and then last mile using startups or local courier partners in the region that help scale a lot.
So, great question. So you are talking not only from a supply chain execution platforms, which we talked about till now, you are now talking about optimizers and supply chain planning, as Manoj was also mentioning, right? From a supply point of view, figure out how this optimization to happen, drill down and say, when you are making a shipment, what should be your route? Who should be your carrier? Should you actually go through an FF route? Should you use a startup for a last mile distribution? All of these plannings you are saying are all automatically there. And you're saying now transporters are already geared up for this as well. I see examples like Blackbuck, etc., which are supporting your argument where they're saying all of these guys are also becoming tech savvy. That's great. So from that perspective, Kaushik and Girija, where do you see we are going? What can we expect in the next 3 years, which has not happened this year?
Yeah, so I'll just add a few points. I think one, wherever we're going, I'll come to that. But one basic truth in supply chain will always remain, right? Right place at the right time, the right product at the right price. These 4 P's have to work. Otherwise, supply chains will not be able to work, right?
Right.
So now, given all of these, increasing variabilities, our need for getting a handle on the place, product, time, and location and the price is becoming extremely important.
Absolutely.
And that is where, Amit, you talked so nicely about blockchain, but, I would draw us towards the Industry 4.0 theme itself, right? Which is all about, trying to, using technology to get us to sense, analyze, and that's where the planning piece comes in, and then respond. That's where the execution piece comes in. And that's where, the IoT platforms, the blockchains, all the other, not even talk about AI, ML, that's all integral part of it. That's all comes in there.
Right.
So that is what, but now earlier it was not there. When I started my journey in digital supply chain in 96, 97, it is not called digital supply chain then. It would take 20 hours to run a demand planning program. What will you do with a, almost a 2-day-old forecast? But now that same program can be run in 15 minutes.
True.
So advances in computing technologies, advances in communication, 5G will be a, game changer, and advances in the physical equipments itself is completely changing the game. I know we're short of time, so I'll stop here. Girija, please.
Thanks, Girija. Same
I
question.
think, Kaushik, you are right. Absolutely. I think let me sort of maybe aggregate that or sort of abstract it a little bit. I think 2 things, Vimal. One is there's a level of platformification that is happening, right? And that will continue, right? Depends on business models, but that ability to say that I will integrate what is disintegrated will increase, right? And people who are able to do it well will be able to get a better value, right? Whether it is service provider organizations, right? And you will find even international supply chain becoming part of it, right? Really there. So that's one key area where definitely there's a lot of digitalization impact will be felt. The other is speaking on the demand planning point and forecasting point. right? I mean, we get amazed when we go talk to a 5,000 crore rupee company, still running moving averages, and another company that probably may have done, let's say, an APO or some kind of a traditional, if I can say it that way, forecasting model, but unable to even get a base understanding of what this secondary sales looks like. It's like you're groping in the dark, right? You have no, you've done something because it's sexy, it looks good, it's okay. But on the ground, is your OTIF really increasing? Are you really able to make a delta impact to your sales team? Are you able to predict that, let's say, metal prices are going to go up, and I'm in the space where I consume metal, so my end customers or channel partner therefore going to order more. That ability to nuance it with data and create some justifiable answers around it, that is where I think the story will go. And what we are seeing is, if you apply the right level of AI ML and you train the models with some amount of basic understanding and external input. So I can get external input far easier today than I would have been able to get 5 years down the line. I mean, earlier, because I can go get API feeds, etc. That ability to churn and say, look, my traditional model tells you that much will sell, but my new model can actually be a lot more sharper. Your forecast accuracy at aggregate level may not change, but at SKU level it can start to go up, and that will make the sea of difference at the point where it matters, right? So I think these are a couple of areas where I'm fairly hopeful that you will start seeing some really step changes and not incremental changes as we move forward.
So I mean, if I can take the crux out of this, Girija, you're saying technology is there. It is bound to improve. Adoption is poor. Variabilities will now force the firms to adopt better mechanisms, either move away from pen and paper, Excel, or traditional systems to really data-driven approaches, and that is what we can see in the next 3 years.
Right.
Here for digital solution providers to actually grasp the global market. Is that how I can conclude it, actually? Yeah.
Absolutely, summed it absolutely nice.
Great. With 3 minutes to spare, I think this was really fruitful, very interesting perspectives on how the market is changing and what we should do about it. I would really like to thank all of the members, unless there are any other open points that we would want to discuss, but I am very happy to have moderated this session, and I really thank all of you for your participation.
Yeah, just one point I wanted to mention. I think Girija kind of touched in the beginning.
Sure.
The visibility of the multiple tiers of your supply chain. You not only want to see your supplier, but you also want to see your supplier's supplier, right? So that is one more thing that we are seeing in the market. There's a need for it and there's a demand for it.
Apparel, I've already told that, okay, if I want a finished t-shirt, it is not enough if I look at myself. I want to look at who's manufacturing the t-shirt. I want to look at the inventory of whoever is dyeing this fabric, and I want to look at the inventory of whoever is creating this gray fabric, right? So when we are saying interconnecting, we are just not saying level n-1 and level n+1. We are going all the way till source and destination blockchain point. Great. Any other points?
Are there any questions from anyone?
One of the questions. We are good with respect to the questions as well, right?
Yes, we do have a lot of questions, but we are running out of time. We only have 1 minute left. So it's up to Mr. Nair if we can have, if we can take one question, or we can just wind it up.
So one point, quick one was Girija. The question was regarding extingency.
I think we have lost Mr. Nair. So, okay, we are almost out of time, so we'll wind it up here. So thank you, Mr. Nair. Thank you all our speakers for joining us today for this interesting session. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our partner. Our title partner, Hey Technologies, are powered by partner Pando, are brought to you by partner Grey Orange, and supported by partner Logistics Skill Council. I would request all the participants, please stay tuned for other exciting discussions. Thank you, everyone. We are signing off.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.